Hey guys, it's Anthony Bandiero here for another roadside chat from the studio. All right. So this question comes from an officer in Idaho, and basically the essence of the question is evasiveness enough for reasonable suspicion? All right, I got my screen pulled up here, and let me kind of give you a sense of what's going on here. So basically, this officer is following this driver. And the backstory to it is that another officer from a different agency was also trying to get PC or reasonable suspicion on his car because it just was driving in a manner of, taking back roads. It was pretty clear that he didn't want to be on the main roads in order to avoid police conduct or contact. So that's kind of like the flavor here. So this other officer in the neighboring jurisdiction then follows the car, and sees if he can develop his own PC to try to find out what's going on with this guy, right? We at this point we have what's called a hunch. Now, hunches are great. They do two things. Number one, they point you in the right direction for criminal activity, and number two, they provide a good reason. You don't need a reason, but they provide a good reason to have a consensual encounter so you can see if the guy is on the up and up. But they cannot be used to detain anybody or force them to identify themselves and so forth. So we have a hunch, and this officer, or I'm sorry, the driver again is taking back roads, is stopping, at stop signs for like 3 seconds or more. So completely complying with the law, no California stops, and so forth. And then ends up pulling to his driveway. The officer then, with no lights activated, gets out of his car to make a consensual encounter. While the guy's, in his driveway, the officer does use his flashlight to illuminate the car, and he sees that the guy has a jacket over his head so as to conceal his identity. He gets out. The cop tries to talk to him and ask him for ID. So far, so good. We call this a consensual encounter, but the guy's like, "Look, I don't want to identify myself," and the person was allowed to go on his way. All right, with those facts, the officer is asking, hey, at this point, do I have reasonable suspicion to detain him to find out what's going on with this guy? And the answer is probably not, right? Probably not. I mean, judges can disagree on this, but if I was your judge, I'm going to be looking for something more, especially in this day and age of people not necessarily wanting to be contacted by police as much as they were in the past. In other words, more and more people are making it clear to law enforcement that they would just want to be left alone, and they're having the courage and the assertiveness to actually say these things like, "Hey, leave me alone. Am I free to go? If I am, I want to be left alone." And that's just the way it is, right? So the judge is likely going to see this as something on that order, right? Careful driving in and of itself, of course, is a little suspicious, right? But it's not reasonable suspicion. And the guy having a jacket over his head is certainly suspicious. But one of the other problems, though, is the guy's probably on his curtilage, and that complicates things. So he's already made it to his house without the reasonable suspicion. I definitely don't think you have reasonable suspicion at the time of contact. But now he's on his property and wants to, it basically is hiding himself. I know this can go either way depending on the judge, and I think it really depends on how well the officer would articulate the report. But I can tell you, for me, if I was in the same situation, I would have not detained him and ordered him to identify himself and gone from there. I just don't think it's the facts are not in your favor, right? It turns out later the officer found out that he had a suspended license. So now we have a reason, if we see him again, to contact him and go from there. If it's timely, if it's not stale. I mean, if it's 6 months later, he could have got his license fixed. But if it's a few days later, the chances of him having his license fixed are probably very minimal. There you go. It's one of these things, these kind of questions where, frankly, I can't really give you too much feedback because I'm really good about giving you what the law is, and then and then we try to apply them to the facts. But this situation is the law requires reasonable suspicion, and it's difficult without seeing a police report and so forth. All right, look, there you have it. I guess I'll look. There's actually a little bit more teaching points on this. I'll teach you a few more things. Number one, reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion is simply a moderate chance of criminal activity. It's a pretty low standard. It's certainly below 50% confidence. More likely than not, it's definitely below more likely than not. It's above a hunch and below probable cause. The other thing I teach is in report writing is my rule of 5. I like officers to give me 5 reasons of why you think the person is involved in criminal activity. That's an arbitrary rule. You know what? Somebody might teach the rule of 3. Somebody might teach the rule of 10. It's just what Anthony is saying here. I like to push officers and say, hey, give me at least 5 reasons. Why do you think? Okay, the back road driving, cool. All right. The over the top 3 seconds at each stop sign. Okay, that is pretty odd for people at 1 o'clock in the morning. Having his head concealed, but I would like a couple more things before I would detain somebody. All right, so there's a little teaching point. Anyway, I hope I moved the ball forward. That's it for today's chat. So please, if you like what I'm doing here and you like this feedback, and if it moves the ball forward, even by an inch, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and let your friends know, right? That motivates me to keep doing these and so forth, all right? And until next time, stay safe.
When it comes to legal training, we're the gold standard. Visit bluetogold.com or call 888-579-7796 today to purchase the Search and Seizure Survival Guide, register for a class, or learn how to bring our search and seizure training to your agency.